Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of GDDV 106, Development Concepts. My name is Kasanas. Guys, we're moving along pretty good here. We're going to finish up with our UI today, I think. We're doing really well though so far. We've covered the course intro and an introduction to Unity, as well as an introduction to scripting and logic and control structures. Well, today we're going to move on to different aspects of UI, particularly the button, the slider, the scroll bar, and the scroll view. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we've already handled a bunch of the UI. We've already handled the canvas, the image, and text. If you haven't seen that first video, that's where I covered some of the common stuff like, how the canvas works and what's a rect transform and that kind of thing. So if you haven't seen that first part, go on back and watch that and you'll kind of get an overview of UI, all the common stuff across UI. Today we're going to cover buttons, sliders, scroll bars, and scroll views, and we're not going to go back and cover the things that we already covered. So we're not going to take a look at the common elements. All right? So with the buttons themselves, this is really your first, if you're following along with this video and you're following along with my course, this is really the first opportunity we've had for user input. And that's what we've got here, some user inputs through a mouse pointer click, which is great. It's going to lead to the first of my course's assignments. Well, the first big assignment anyway. You've done a bunch of smaller assignments already, but hey, the first of your bigger assignments. And in this first assignment, you're actually going to be going through and building a complete application. You're going to be going through and building a simple calculator. Now, we're not going to do that here in the videos. That is the assignment for my students in class. And if I actually made a video about how to make it, I think my students would just copy that particular idea. We'll see, though. We'll see. I might actually go through and do it. We'll see. Anyway, guys, let's start with the button. And you know what? I'm not going to go through my lecture notes. I've got a bunch of lecture notes here. I'm not going to go through the lecture notes. Instead, we're going to go right into Unity and explore Unity. Okay? Let's head on over. Okay, guys, here we are inside of Unity, and I haven't really changed a whole lot. This is still the Dev Concepts project, and it's still the week 4 scene. Let's go right away. I moved around a little bit of stuff here, so I just kind of made space in the middle here to do our work. Let's go right away to Game Object, and we'll go down to UI, and we're going to add ourselves a button. Just use the regular button. So there's our regular button, and let's just zero this out, because I don't know why it's off center. All right, let's zero that out. Now there we go. We've got ourselves our regular button there. Now let's take a look first of all at the hierarchy structure of the button itself. If I open it up, we've got ourselves a button, and underneath that we have a child text. Now that child text, if I take a look at it, is just the regular old text that we took a look at last time. Our text example from the last video, that's all it is. It's a regular text asset, a regular text game object. And it's been added in as a child to the button, meaning that it's going to be rendered on top of the button itself. And what we're doing is we're actually seeing the word button on top of here. And if we change this to, let's say, I don't know, play, as an example, now it's going to say, let's so we can see it. Now it's going to say play in the middle. So that's all the text is actually doing. So that's the structure of button and text. Let's go back to the button for a second here. If we take a look at the button itself, same stuff we had previously, the ability to name it, the ability to tag it, turn it on and off. It's on the UI layer. We've got ourselves a rect transform. So it's all the same stuff that we talked about in the previous video. What makes this different actually is the actual button component down here. Now, before we get to the button component, note that there's an image component here as well. That image component is exactly the same as the image script that was on the images that we took a look at in the last episode. So image hurt, image healthy, exactly the same thing. It works in exactly the same way. You have the ability to either change this around a bit so that you're using it as a filled or just using it as a normal, etc., right? It's set up right now as sliced to allow the image itself to stretch as the buttons stretch. That's what slice does. It slices it in a particular way, so when the buttons themselves stretch, there's stretchable parts to the particular button that allow it to stretch. All right, so you can set it up, and you could actually even make this into your health bar that you can click the health bar as fast as you can to add health. I don't know. You could do all that kind of stuff that we did with the regular image with this particular image sprite. Sorry, this image script. It's exactly the same thing, okay? The only difference between, there's no difference actually. What we have here, what we've included is this button component as well, and this button script. And this button script will allow us to, it's what really makes this thing into a button. It's really what makes this thing interactable. Let's take a look what we have within the button component so we understand the difference. Right away we see interactable, and if I hit play right now, you're going to see, oh, come on, something's wrong with my mouse. If we hit play right now, you're going to see that I can actually click the play button, and everything works fine, right? I can see a slight change right there. If I turn off interactable, guess what? You can't do that anymore. So if I hit play now, it's going to be grayed out. We're not going to do anything with it. We can't click it. Nothing will happen. So we can adjust individual components inside of the individual components to make sure that things are interactable or not. Okay. Below that, we have the transition. And right now it says transition is set to color tint. We have a bunch of different options here. None, color tint, sprite swap, and animation. And really what this is your player feedback. It is your UI feedback, so your player understands exactly where they are within the UI. They understand what they've done as far as the UI is concerned, right? The color tint allows the player, whenever they hover over the button or whenever they click the button, it's going to change the colors. Sprite swap will swap out the sprite that's associated with the image of this particular button, so it'll swap out the source image of the button itself, changing how the button looks. Below that is an animation option, which will allow the button to be animated. There's a bunch of different ways to animate it, but that will allow animation to occur utilizing the animation editor. We'll leave it as color tint just so you can see exactly how this works. And right now it's really set up to be subtle, which is great. Subtlety is awesome. But you want to make sure that your player understands the feedback they're getting. Okay, so choose your colors wisely. Right now it's set up to be a normal color of white, and there's a slight change as far as a highlighted color is concerned. Let me go ahead and change this. One of my daughters loves purple, so let's make this into kind of a light purple for them. So there's the light purple. And I will change the pressed color into a dark color, to a dark purple. All right, let's just do this. I also have a friend who absolutely hates purple, so that's for you too. All right, so there we go. We've got ourselves the normal color, highlighted color, and the pressed color. And the selected color as well is here. So we could change that if we wanted to too. But this is just for demonstration purposes. If I hit play right now, watch what happens. So there we go, we're playing, and we've got ourselves a regular white button. If I hover over it, we can see we get that kind of light purple. And if I click it, as long as I am holding down the left mouse button when I click, it's going to change that darker color. So if I click, I've got my darker color there, and when I release, it goes back to its regular color. Okay, so that is, and it's currently now the selected color, so this is what color it is right now. This is what we've got going on as far as the player feedback is concerned. Feedback is an extremely important part of any game, and getting feedback from the UI is probably just as important as getting feedback from anything else you're doing, right? If a player clicks the button, they want to know something is happening and something's been done. So just this simple indication here is decent feedback as far as the player is concerned. They're going to know that the click has actually worked. So give careful consideration to your transition. Now, we've got a bunch of other stuff, and this will change how fast it transitions. There's a bunch of different stuff in here. You guys can play around with this. It's fairly straightforward. Now, what's great is down here is this on-click event, and this stuff here is actually super important. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the on-click event system that we currently have. So with any of our interactable components, you're going to have some type of event that's down here. With a button, it's an on-click. We can add additional ones as well, but with the button itself, it's an on-click. So what does this mean? Whenever a player clicks the button, it's going to do something. Now, right now, you saw when I clicked, nothing happened, and that's because currently our list is empty. We can add some different things. If I click on the plus sign, it's going to allow us to add a particular event to the click event here. Right now, it's got no object associated with it and no function. We actually have to write some type of, we have to create some type of object and create some type of function that's going to hold the code that happens whenever we click the play button. So here's what we're going to do. And again, I haven't written anything yet, so we're just going to do it live. I'm recording on the same day. And I still don't have a lot of time, so we're just going to do this live. Hopefully it's not too disastrous. Anyway, guys, it's really easy stuff. Here's what we're going to do. Let's go back into our canvas where we currently have our UI controller script. And let's double-click on our UI controller script once again to open it up. Now, initially, this is what we had happening. We actually had the on-start text turn into wake up Kasanas, okay? And we'll leave that in there. So it's affecting our text directly. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to set it up so that every time I click the button, it's going to put a you've clicked X times on the button itself. Okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at how we would do that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new integer that I'll call click count. Okay, so we'll call it click count. We'll set it equal to a value of 0. So we've now set up our integer as a private integer. We've named it, and we've actually gone ahead and initialized it to a value of 0. Okay, so that's nothing new. We already took a look at the use of primitive data types previously, so nothing's really changed there. Now, what we're going to be doing for the first time is utilizing a public function. And in order for this to work appropriately, your function needs to be a public function. So only your public functions are going to be available through your event system that you have on any of your interactable components. All right, so I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm still inside of my, for those of you who aren't familiar with how classes work still, I'm still remaining inside of my class. Remember, all of my code has to remain inside of my class, so I'm adding this additional function inside of the closed brace down here. Now, I've already mentioned this has to be a public function, so let's start away with the public keyword. Now, I have an option whenever I create an event that's going to occur, either an on-click or an on-scroll or whatever it's going to be, I have the option to pass in a parameter if I want to. In this particular case, I'm not going to bother. I'm going to say void because it's not going to return anything, and I'm going to give this a name. So let's just call this our click tracker. All right, this will be our click tracker, and I'm not going to pass in any parameter list at all. If you decide that you are interested in actually going through and passing on a parameter into this public function, you absolutely can. You can pass a maximum of 1, all right, 1. So I'm going to open up my brace, and I'm going to make sure that I hit return, so I've got my 2 braces in place. Now, every time that the person clicks the button, I want this click tracker to kick in, and all I want it to do is I want it to increment count. So let's say right here, click count ++, all right, we've already talked about that 1,000 times. That's going to increment my value by 1, okay? And I'm going to want it to change my text. So I'm going to start by saying, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say my start text dot text, just like we did previously. So I'm going to update this text, is going to be equal to, and what I want to do is have it equal to something. Now, I either could have saved this as a string, or I can rewrite this every single time. It doesn't really matter how I decide to do it. So I'm going to say, you've clicked X times. You've clicked, and I'll just say equals just because I'm really super lazy. All right, and I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to utilize the click count. All right, and let's put this entire thing inside of our, oops, I don't want a space here. Put this entire thing inside of these, so the entire thing is done, and I'm going to add in my semicolon to make sure everything works well. So all this is going to do is every time that I click this, it's going to make the text for my start text equal to you've clicked equals clicked count. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to file save this. File save. And let's head back into Unity and check out what we need to do next. So we've got appropriate save, we got appropriate function that we can use within our button. Let's go into our button right now and see how we set it up. So I'm going back to the button. I'm going to scroll down until I actually see my on-click event. So this is my on-click list right here. And I want to set it up with a particular object. I'm going to simply grab my canvas and I'm going to drag it in place. That's where I have my functions currently located. I need to pick the actual function itself. So I'm going to come down here and I've got a list of everything that's available. You'll note at the very bottom, we've got ourselves our UI control script. If we look through this, we can find our public functions. I've got myself the click tracker right here. If I turn that on, everything is now ready to go. All right, so let's maximize on play just so you guys can see this. And I'm going to hit play. So here we are inside. Wake Up Casanas is over here. Here's my button. And when I hit the button, bang, you've clicked once, you've clicked twice, you've clicked 3 times, and so on and so on and so on. Okay? So it's really easy to actually go ahead and set this kind of thing up. We've already discussed the idea of public functions. All you need to do is create a public function on some game asset, and then from that public function, you simply add it to the list of your button. Once you've added to the list of your button, that public function will then automatically operate every single time the player does whatever the event is that's listed here. In the case of a button, it is a click event. Okay, and you can have as many of these as you want. If I want to have 2 things happen, if I wanted to, I don't know, change the tint of this dude, or I wanted to do anything I want. If I want to do something else up here, I can simply say plus, and I could add a brand new thing as well. Okay, so I can keep adding them as much as I want. If I've added too many and I say, oh, I don't want this one, highlight it and hit the negative sign, and there we go, it is gone. All right, guys, that is how a button works. Super simple. We already talked about how the image works. You've got yourself the image script, set up the button to look the way you want. We already talked about the text UI element. This has a child UI text right there. Simply change the text however you want. Set up your font, set up your words, anything you'd like, okay? Afterwards, by setting up your on-click events, which are currently located here, in this particular case, I've got one, then all you have to do is set them up like I showed you, utilizing a public function, which we've talked about in a previous video as well. All right, guys, so that is how the buttons themselves work. If we want to talk a little bit very briefly about how to stay organized, my recommendation for you is to ensure that all of your public functions that are being utilized by the event system are all located in the same place. Okay, so I put mine on my canvas. Afterwards, I created a UI controller script, and I'm going to put all of my UI events into that particular area, right? All of my public functions into that one script. And that way I know where they all are. If you build an individual class, which you absolutely could. You could build an individual class for every single one of these and then have like an exit button and have, and have all these different things that are separate. You could absolutely do that, but it's going to get really messy and you're not going to be able to find your work later on. So stay organized, guys. Create yourself a script that's going to create yourself a class that's going to maintain all of the information for your UI events. All right, guys? Awesome. I think next we're going to take a quick look at the game object, the UI. We're going to take a look at what was I going to take a look at next? The slider. So let's click on slider and let's add the brand new slider into our scene. Now, I'm not really going through and taking the time to create a proper UI that's in any way usable by a player. If you guys are going to go through afterwards and build yourself a UI, you're going to want to make sure that you really give careful consideration to the layout and how things appear. So for example, I'm adding in a slider here and I haven't labeled it in any way. If I did this in a game, the player would have no idea what this thing possibly was, right? So you got to be really, really careful when you're adding these things to your scene. Make sure that you give your player the proper information they need to be able to play your game properly. Okay, so let's take a look at the slider. Let's open it up here in the hierarchy and see what we've got. So we've got a bunch of different things here in the slider itself. We have the slider as the parent, background, fill area, fill, handle slide area, and the handle itself. Each one of these things does something slightly different. Let's start off with the slider. And if we take a look, our slider has all of the information we need as far as the slider itself is concerned. The name, activate it, tag it, etc. We've got ourselves a rect transform here. We've kind of got everything that we need. I'm going to set this right away to 0, and let's just put this to -50. Just because those weird numbers were bugging me. All right, so there we go. We've got all the stuff we need down here in our rect transform. Let's take a look at what we have as far as the slider script is concerned. Once again, we have the ability to make it interactable, and once again, we have the ability to set a transition type so that the player again gets feedback from the UI itself as they are working within the UI. It's obviously slightly different. We've got ourselves normal color, highlighted color, pressed color, selected color, disabled color, and well, actually, I think it's all the same. The only thing that's different is the target graphic right here. The target graphic is the only thing that's different, and the target graphic is the only thing that is affected by these transitions. So watch what happens if I hit play in this particular case. All right, so here we go. Again, this thing here will change for us. If I go over this, the only thing that changes is the actual handle right here, this handle image. Let's change that a little bit so that we can see it a little better. Let's go in our normal color, our highlighted color. Let's do the same thing. I got another daughter who likes pink, so this is going to be the pink for her. All right, let's make it pink. It's still kind of purpley. Pink. Let's make our pressed color into a brighter pink for my other daughter. I have twin girls, just so you guys know. Twin girls. Okay, let's hit play again and check this out. So if I go over this, look at the only thing that's actually being highlighted in any way is the handle right here. All right, and if I press it, I can see that the handle is changing color and nothing else is changing color. Okay, so I'm able to slide this handle back and forth. I can only go to the extremes of the what's shown as far as the slider is concerned. So let's stop this and head back over. So that's what that's doing. Same thing that we had with the button. And again, the fade duration is how long it takes to go from the transitions, etc. Okay, down here we've got ourselves a fill rect, a handle rect, and each of these are simply a reference to something or other. In this particular case, in the fill rect, it's reference to the fill area, and the handle rect is a reference to the handle area, okay? So that's all that is right there. We can also go through and we can set different things like the direction of our slider, so it works from left to right, a minimum and maximum value. And you can put any kind of values you want in here. By clicking the whole number only, we are ensuring that we can't get fractions, right? We can't get floating point numbers. Instead, we're only getting integers. Below that is a value, and we can either set this value to something here manually by dragging the handle, for example, or we can do so through code. Okay, so we'll take a look at exactly how to do that in just a minute, and we'll go through and we'll do something. I don't know, we'll write some script for this as well. Okay, guys, so let's go in and take a look at what the background is. The background is the underlying area. And again, remember, we're looking at this from the top down. So this is being rendered from the top down. The background is being rendered in the very back. And if we really want to see a difference, let's change this. Let's say this was some kind of volume button, and we wanted to... I don't know, the louder we got, the more red we got, or the less red we got, I don't know. Let's just change this right now to a value of bright red, okay? And we can see right away that our background is changing. If I hit play now, my foreground and my background will be covered up. So there we go. I'm going back and forth, right? Back and forth. It's red, and I'm covering it up with the white when I do that. The same thing with the fill area and the fill. It's actually the fill is what we're interested in. The fill, again, is the same thing. So the fill is as we drag this up, we're exposing more and more of the area, and we want to show that color. So let's make this into, I don't know, a green, some kind of green. All right, there we go. And if I hit play now, we're going to see that as we drag that, we are going to be showing more and more of the green. Okay, so we can see the change there. The fill is covering over the background. Okay, look at that weirdest color combination ever: green, pink, and red. All right, awesome. Okay, so that's really what each of these sections do. The handle obviously has a link to the image of the knob itself. You can put anything you wanted on here. If you wanted to have, let's say I swapped it out for the Kasana's head, the zombie head. All right, I absolutely could. So now when I hit play, we've got ourselves our little zombie head in there that we can drag around. All right, so that's all we've got there. That's what we've got going on. Most of the stuff that's located underneath the slider is simply visual feedback of some kind. Right, through either the fill area, the handles, etc. All of the work really takes place right here in the slider. Okay, and we can set these values to whatever we want. If we drag this around, you can see that as I drag it, I'm getting myself values up in here automatically. All right, and I can change this to anything I want. Let's say I make it to a 10. Well, now I'm dragging from 0 to 10. Okay, whole numbers only. We'll only click, 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 click between the values. Okay, now, once again, what we've got here is we've got our on value change. That's what we've got right here, our on value change. Let's put this back to a value of 1, and let's do something interesting here. Why don't we set it up so that we've got this thing here scrolling up and down. Why don't we do that with it? Okay, so I'm going to take a look at the value change, and I'm going to set the percentage of the face, the top face we have over here, to whatever value that we've got here. Okay, let's head into our script and do so. Okay, so let's go into our canvas and let's find our UI script and open it up. So what do we want to do inside of this UI script? Well, again, we know that our goal is to change the value of the image, the fill amount, to equal that of our slider. So we know we're going to need access to our image. So let's make a public image, and again, image is available because we've added the using Unity engine.ui, so it's immediately available. And let's just call this our health image. All right, let's just call it that, our health image. Doesn't matter what we call it. And it's public, so it's going to be available inside of our inspector. Now let's scroll down here, and we're going to add ourselves a brand new public function. It's a void function once again, and we'll call this let's call it our set health. It doesn't matter what we call it. Now, this time, unlike the last time, our set health is going to take something within its parameter, and it can have up to one parameter option. In this particular case, we're going to set it as a float, and we'll just call this our float. We'll call it our current health. All right, so our current health is going to equal something. I'm going to add in my braces, and there we go. So what do I want to happen? I want our health image dot our fill amount to be equal to our current health. current health. Okay, and that's it. That's all I want to do. It's public, so I'll have access to it right away. So let's go File, and let's save this, and let's head back into Unity. And let's head back onto our slider. So the first thing we're going to have to do is make sure that our slider is actually giving us float values. So I have it set up as whole numbers. Let's make sure that we are getting float values. And 0 to 1 is great. It's currently set up to 0 to 1, and that's because our healthy image, the fill amount, goes between 0 and 1. So the fact that our slider also goes between 0 and 1 is great. All right, so 0 to 1 is great as far as that's concerned. Now what we have to do is we have to add in a value here, add in a changed event, all right, a value changed event. To do so, once again, I'm going to hit the plus sign, and it's going to say, okay, well, what do you want to add? I want to add a public function off of my canvas, and when it says where's the function, it's under my UI control script. Now, there's a couple of things we have to take note of right here. Down here, I have an option where it says static parameters. I have the option to set health to a float value. If I set this, if I choose this particular option, it's sending in a value of some kind. I could put in here 7.6, for example, and it's going to send that one value every single time. But that's not what I want at all. I don't want it to utilize a single value. Instead, I'm going to go back here to my UI script. I'm going to go to the UI script itself. I'm going to go to this dynamic float at the top. And when I choose dynamic float, this option is automatically going to take this value. It's going to automatically take your value, and it's going to send it in as the parameter. Okay, so if you have a changing value that you want to change all the time, you're going to want to use that particular setting. All right, make sure, again, I'll show it to you because it's a little confusing. At the very top is dynamic float. This is equivalent to the value of the change. And down here, these ones here, these static parameters are a same parameter that you're always sending all the time. Okay, so if you had a button and you always want to send the value of 0, well, then you could set up the button to always send the value of 0. Okay, so great. Let's take a look at how this works now. Well, first thing I got to do, I almost forgot. I hate doing this. Let's go to our canvas, and let's make sure that we've got ourselves a health image in there. So image healthy, drag it and drop it in place. And now I'm going to hit play. So here we are. We're currently set all the way to 1, which is great, and our healthy image is all the way to 1. Let's see what happens when I change it. Look at that. Look at that. Changing, changing, changing. Okay, guys, so that's how easy it is to have communication between your UI interface and other things that are around. All right, you can simply call particular public functions and do something. Amazing, amazing. All right, the next thing I'd like to take a look at is this was the slider. We're going to take a look at the scroll bar. It's very similar to the slider, but let's take a look at the scroll bar. So let's go ahead and add in our game object now. Let's go to our UI once again, and we are going to add in the scroll bar. And let's just move this into position so it's kind of close here. So our scroll bar works in a very, very similar manner to that of our slider. It is slightly different, however, and I don't know why. They really behave very similarly, but for some reason, in the hierarchy, if we take a look at our scroll bar, it actually has a far different hierarchy structure than our slider. For some reason, they've built stuff in directly into the scroll bar, whereas in the slider, they separate it out into child objects, which I guess is fine. I just don't understand why they didn't do it all kind of together. Let's take a look at the differences in the scroll bar. The scroll bar itself, where's my mouse? The scroll bar itself, here we go. The scroll bar itself is very similar in nature, except for the fact that right here, this image is the background. So unlike our slider, we actually had a separate object that was the background. For some reason, they have added that component directly onto the top level of the scroll bar. So it's right here. And if we change out this, we can change out what the image looks like. We can change the color. So if we want to kind of make it act like our other one, let's make it red. So there we go. We've got a red background. So all of that kind of stuff is here instead of broken up into child objects. I don't know why they did that. Now, the real meat comes in right here as far as the scroll bar is concerned in this scroll bar component. A lot of it's very similar. It's interactable. We can change how the transitions work. We can change how the highlighting works for feedback. All that stuff is here, and it's kind of the same. In this one here, we have a reference to our handle rect, which is just this handle right here. So it's the handle right here. So just like we had for the slider, had access to the handle through a reference, we've got it right there as well. Okay, so we've got ourselves our handle as a reference. Our directionality is here. Now, here's where it gets slightly different. This scroll bar only allows for changes between 0 and 1. Okay, it is a float value between 0 and 1. That's all it is. Okay, so a float value between 0 and 1, and we can't change the minimum maximum values. If we go back to the slider actually had us able to, where is it, right here, able to adjust our minimum and our maximum sizes. So we could have utilized any values we wanted in here. Negative or positive values could have been listed here, but we can't do that as far as the scroll bar is concerned. We only have values between 0 and 1. We also have the step sizes, so we've got a total of 10 steps, and each step is 0.2 in size. So later on when we see this operating, we're going to kind of see the handle click into place across 10 different values between 0 and 1. Okay, but otherwise, this is identical in nature. It's identical in nature. Let's change our slide area as well. Our slide area is the same as our handle slide area. Our handle slide area is simply simply an empty game object with a transform node, as is our slide area. And all it's doing is holding this child handle. That's all it's doing. Okay. So, and once again, just like the other one, the only thing to change is the handle itself, just like the one that here. The only thing that changes is the handle if we adjust the colors. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that actually, just so we can see it. Let's set it up. Actually, I'm not going to bother. You guys understand how that works, all right? As far as the scroll bar is concerned, the transitions, we understand that now. So let's take a look at setting up our value change. It's exactly the same. We need a public function. In fact, we can actually use the exact same public function we just wrote. So let's go here, hit the plus sign. Let's grab our canvas, drag it and drop it in place. And let's choose our UI, and we'll choose our set health. Again, the dynamic one, to make sure we're sending in the value. If I hit play right now, watch what happens. So now these two are going to be fighting over it. So if I scroll this down, we can see it's all red. If I scroll this up, we can see it's doing that. All right, so they're both doing exactly the same thing. Both doing exactly, they're just fighting over that value. So it's not the best, all right? So it's interesting because the slider, we can see here, does not allow us to have the same kind of covering that we've got here. As far as the slider is concerned, it indicates whether we're up or higher or lower, and this one is just a position along here. You're going to want to make sure that you've got some type of label associated with this so they know that this is the high and this is the low, or however you want to do it, right? Because like I showed you before, you can reverse these. You can have it going the other direction, so they won't know what is high and what is low. So make sure that you are giving your player the appropriate information to play your game. Anyway, that is the scroll bar. What I'm going to do, instead of writing a brand new script for this, I'm just going to show you something that we can do as far as changing exactly how this works. Right now we have an on value changed in exactly the same way. On the slider we had an on value changed. We have that located here on the scroll bar as well. But let's say we didn't want that. Maybe we want something to happen when you click the scroll bar, as an example. You want something else to occur. I mean, it does if I hit play. If I hit play, I can click these things as well, and it's going to change. So there's already an on-click event here, but it doesn't actually do anything besides change the value. All right, this one here you have to actually grab and slide. If it's up high, you can't click on. Oh, you can. Oh, I was wrong. So yeah, this one here you can actually grab and slide. All right. So both these you can click in the area, and it's going to automatically move. All right, so there's already something that occurs there, but there's no on-click event that's actually associated with either the scroll bar or the slider, right? All we have is this on value change. So clicking the plus sign here won't actually add in it'll add in a brand new event. So if I hit plus, we saw this previously, but it doesn't allow me any option to change what is happening and when. So it's still a value changed event, and that's not what I want, right? I want to add a brand new event to the system. I want to set it up so let's say I'm clicking and something occurs, right? That's what I'm looking for. So this doesn't help me at all. So let's go in here and we'll minus this. So if we can't do it through this area here, there's got to be somewhere else we can do it, and there is. We're going to go to the add component, and we're going to go to the event list, and you're going to try and find event trigger. So here is event trigger, and the event trigger allows us to add a new event type. So when I say add new event type, it's going to say, well, what kind do you want to add in here? And let's say I put up a pointer up. All right, so here is a brand new pointer up event. So that's kind of like your click event. Instead of being clicked whenever the pointer is, when you release the pointer, when you release the left trigger and then the button moves upwards, it's going to toss this event out. It's going to trigger this particular event. Okay, and you can do this for any of your objects. If you want to have it set up so that when you click your slider, it does something, or when you drag your slider around the screen, it does something, or whatever it is you want. Your scroll bar, your button, your slider, all of them can do the exact same thing. Your images, they can do the same thing too. You can add an event to your images if you really want to. All right, guys. Now, I don't want to do this, so I'm simply going to delete it, remove my component, and I'm going to leave it like this for now. So that is the scroll bar. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is the scroll bar as its use in, let me just move this stuff out of the way for now. I'm going to grab my button and my scroll bar all the way down to my scroll bar, and let's just move this stuff for now, because I need some space for the last thing that I want to take a look at. And the last object I want to take a look at is under Game Object UI, and we want to take a look at the scroll view. And the reason why we're looking at this last is what it allows us to do is it's already using the scroll bars, so we can see that we've got scroll bars here if I just hit play. We got scroll bars here along the side, so I've got myself a scroll bar and I can move up and down. Now, it doesn't look like it's actually doing anything right now, but it is. Let's take a look at exactly what it's doing. If we take a look at the scroll bar, we open it up, we've got a bunch of different stuff here. First of all, we have two different scroll bars, a vertical and a horizontal scroll bar. They're both here. Okay, so those are both going to be available if it's necessary. If you saw how when I hit play, one of them goes away if it's not necessary. All right, so the horizontal scroll bar is not necessary; it's gone. Now, what is this viewport? So this viewport is basically here's an empty game object. This is basically an opportunity for you to add information to this empty game object and then utilize the scroll bars to view that particular information. Let's say you wanted to create a map, and that map allowed you to scroll up and down through the map, or you wanted to create text that the player could read by scrolling up and down. That's all available here. Now, it's utilizing the scroll bar, so you don't have to use this kind of like industrial looking thing. You can change it to look however you want, right? You can change all these things. They're fully customizable. So let's take a look at how we'd add something to the content. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you how this works, I'm going to simply add something down here. So I'm going to add a brand new image. When I add a brand new, watch what happens when I say game object and I create myself a UI image. Watch what's going to happen. I'm going to add, where's image? Where's image? Right here, image. It automatically pops, even though I had content selected, it actually popped in way down here. Okay, so I have to drag this where I want it. And I want this to be associated with my content. So I'm just going to make it as a child of my content. And what I'm going to do, where's my mouse? There she is. I'm going to drag this in so we can see it for now. So here is our image. Okay, here's our image. And let's say we were making some kind of, I don't know, thing to tell you what happens to your character when he gets hurt. I'm going to go to this image and I'm going to simply change out the sprite so we can see this. So let's go to our sprites and I will drag the zombie in here. So now we've got ourselves a zombie here, and watch, I'm going to drag this all the way down here, guys. So we can't see it anymore, right? It's off the screen, and this is just for demonstration purposes. I'll drag it off the screen like this, and when I hit play, watch what happens. So here I am, and when I drag this up and down now, I'm actually physically dragging that content area. And depending on how far I place this object, it'll be able to be dragged a certain amount. Here's the image that's in there. Here is my content space. It has a height of 300. Oops, no, sorry, I'm lying. Yeah, it has a height of 300, and its right value is set to exactly the same area. Watch what happens if I drag this out, though. Let me go in here, and let's drag this way out here, and let's make sure that our image is way out here, and let's hit play. Okay, now that I've made the content space bigger, I have both the horizontal and the vertical scroll bars. So if I scroll down, I'm not seeing my dude. If I scroll all the way across, there's my dude. All right, so that's how you make this stuff available. And you can make this as large or as small as you want. And again, the scroll bars can have certain things occurring. If you want to scroll so you then see, like, I don't know, dots on the map that show up as you're scrolling through, then you could set that up utilizing your horizontal or vertical scroll bar and going in and adding yourself a value changed event, right? Because every time you drag this up and down, that's a value change. Okay, guys? So I think that's as far as I want to actually take what we're doing right now. I don't want to go any further than that. I've given you guys a lot to think about, and you can pretty much do all of the things that you're going to want to do as far as the assignment is concerned. Your assignment is going to be to build yourself a calculator. Okay? So guys, I hope you all out there enjoyed this particular video. Go on out there and make yourself some cool UI stuff. Remember guys, plan your UI. Make sure that it's very obvious for your user what the UI is doing. You want to make sure that you give lots of feedback to your player. You want to make sure they understand what they're doing as far as your UI is concerned. Give them all that stuff so they can play your game properly. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know down below with a thumbs up. And if you didn't, thumbs down is perfectly fine. There's someone having a great time right now giving me 1 thumbs down on every single one of my videos. Anyway, guys, if you do decide to give me a thumbs down, like I said, it's perfectly fine. Let me know what I can do to make sure that I'm creating the best videos I can for you. All right, guys? Thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.